and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 8 English lesson on apostrophes. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts, grade 8. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of apostrophes. All right, so our chapter is apostrophes. Our subject is English Language Arts. Grade 8. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter, um, grade 8, sorry. And then our lessons are it's to identify and correct with compound and joint positions. So we're going to find out what that is. And also to identify and correct errors with plural and possessive nouns. All right. So when it comes to possessive nouns, right, or apostrophes, right, with apostrophes, right, apostrophes, or let's say a possessive noun, it shows who or what owns something or who has something. So a possessive noun, right, it shows us who owns something, right, or what owns something, or who or what has something. So instead of saying mine, yours, right? Because those are the pronouns. But when it comes to nouns, let's say, for example, we say Gina, Gina has a beautiful bag, right? So if we're referring to Gina's bag, then we can say it is Gina's bag. And we need to then add the apostrophe with it. So Gina's bag, because now it means that it belongs to Gina. So if we want to show that something belongs to someone or that someone has something, sorry, then we say that that is a possessive noun because it shows either who or what owns something or has something. And we need to then, for example, when we write that name, then we need to add an apostrophe to show who owns or who has something. And also to form the possessive of a compound noun, we need to make the last part of the noun possessive. So, for example, remember a compound noun is where we are joining words, right? And when we join words, and then it means that if we join the words, and then it means that the last word then needs to have an apostrophe. For example, my sister-in-law's career. So we don't say my sister's career, we say my sister-in-law's career. So that is where we then start adding our apostrophe. So this over here gives us the idea that it's like a compound noun. And if we look at another example, right? And then we can also say another example could be, let me type it. We can say the Secretary of State speech. Right? So if the Secretary of State were to make a speech, and then we, for example, say the Secretary of State's speech, right? Because now it shows us that the Secretary of State is making a speech. It is his or her speech, right? So we don't say the Secretary's speech, we say the Secretary of State's speech, right? If we look at another one, another example where we are talking about compound nouns, right? And we need to make the last part of that noun a possessive. Um, we can say great grandmothers, right? Because that is also almost like a joining word. So my great grandmother. So if we want to talk about her name, right? So then we say that my great grandmother's name, right? Or names. So we can then say my great grandmother's names are and right? So we don't say great only, we then identify, or we when we put our possessive noun, or we put the of our apostrophe, right? And then we put the apostrophe by the last part, or the last word of that possessive pronoun, right? So great grandmothers, and we then add the apostrophe and then s by grandmothers to show the position, right? So once again, we have a possessive noun, and a possessive noun, it shows either who, or it shows what owns something, or a possessive noun shows who or what has something. Something belongs to me, right? I have it, I own it, belongs to me, right? And then we can say it is Nadine's um work, Nadine's something, but it's something that belongs to Nadine. And once again, to in order for us to form the possessive of the compound noun, then we need to make the last part of that noun. There's the last part of that noun. We need to make a possessive. And once we make something a possessive, we need to add an apostrophe and s to that specific words to show that it is either a possessive or noun. All right? To show the position. All right. So we also made mention of joining, right? Joint positions. So when something is joined, let me write it down for you. So basically, when two nouns are joined, or when it's joined by the words and, then they share. So we say when two nouns joined by and share position of something. Remember, if you are showing possession of something, it means that you either own something or has something, right? Then only the second noun should be written as a possession. All right, so here they say now, when two nouns joined by the word and, right? When they share possession of something, then only the second noun should be written as a possessive noun. And if we look at an example of that, right? If we look at an example of that, then we can say, um, remember, if we maybe use the word and, then we can use two people, right? So we can maybe say, I'll use my own name, Nadine, and let me think of another name, Betty, right? So we can say Nadine and Betty, they share a room, right? So we can say that Nadine and Betty's room is larger than Jack's, right? So, or we can say, let's just say Nadine and Betty's room is larger than mine, right? So, which means that if we have two words, right? If we have a compound word, right? If we have two words that is joined by the word and, then the second word, the second name needs to then show the position, right? So which means that we only add an apostrophe and an S to the second name. You're not going to say Nadine's and Betty's, right? You're only going to say or make use of the or make mention of the second um name to show the position, right? And if we, for example, say that Nadine and Betty's room is larger than mine, then this gives us an indication that Nadine and Betty they share a room. They have like one room that they are sharing. So we are not saying that, let's say, Nadine and Betty's room, it is larger than whoever the other siblings' room, right? And then also when two of our nouns are joined by and, but they do not share possession of something, then both nouns should be written as a possessive noun. So if they do not share the same thing, like for example, in this case, Nadine and Betty's room, this means that the two of them they share a room, right? They share a room. They have one room. It is both of their rooms, and that is why we only show the position by the second one. But if Nadine has her own room and Betty has her own room, then we're going to say Nadine's and Betty's room are clean, right? Or we can say Nadine's and Betty's rooms are larger than mine, which means that both Nadine and Betty they have their own room, right? But if it shows that the two of them have something together, and then the second person should then show we should show this the position by the second name. But in this case, or let's say in another case, where let's say both Nadine has her own room and Betty has her own room, then we say Nadine's and Betty's because now it shows individuality. Like they have their own rooms. All right. So now we're going to aplusstudents.ca where we are going to continue with our lesson on apostrophes, right? And we are going to identify and correct errors with compound and joint positions, as well as with plural and possessive nouns, right? And we said that a possessive noun shows who or what owns something or has something. And to form the possessive of a compound noun, we need to make the last part of the noun possessive, right? Okay, let's look at an example. We are now going to correct the text if needed, right? It says, my mother's in law house is directly across the street from ours. Fortunately, we have a good relationship with her and we all enjoy spending time together. So if we were to correct the text, right, by adding the correct possessive noun, then yeah, my mother-in-law. Remember we said that when we have a joined position or compound position, right? Then the last word needs to show the position. So we can then say it is mother-in-laws, right? So we don't say mothers-in-law, we say mother-in-laws because now we're referring to the mother-in-law's house. right? So that is our correction. All right, let's correct another one. It says click to correct the text if needed. Ethel Rosenberg's and Julius Rosenberg's conspiracy trial is in 1951. In 1951 was highly publicized and widely debated. While some Americans felt that Rosenbergs were victims of anti-communist hysteria, others believed the husband and wife had indeed shared secret information with the Russian government. Right? So in this case, seeing that it's basically implicating both the Rosenbergs, right? Then we need to say Ethel Rosenberg. So we're going to remove that. So say Ethel Rosenberg and Julian Rosenberg's conspiracy trial in 1951, right? So we say Ethel Rosenberg without the apostrophe over there. And we say Julius Rosenbergs. Because now we're referring to both of their trial, right? Both of them together. It's one trial. If it was separate cases, right? If it was separate cases in this case, then we would have said Ethel Rosenbergs and Julius Rosenbergs. But it is a joint trial, a joint case. So only the second one or the last part needs to be, it needs to show the position, right? All right, it says place, even though Malia did not place first in a 5K meet, her runners up prize made all her months of training worthwhile. Do we say it is runners up or her runner ups? Right? So we then, if we correct this possessive pronoun, and then we then say that even though Malia did not place first in her 5K meet, her runner ups prize, right? So which means that she got a prize for being runner up. So her runner ups prize. So there we have our apostrophe, not by the runners up, right? We put the apostrophe by the last part of the noun, right? So since runner and ups is together, right, we put the apostrophe by the last part of that noun, which is up, right? So the last part is a position. So now let's go to our test, right, where we are going to identify correct errors with compound and joint position. All right. Okay. So now we say we need to click the correct text if needed, right? It says, my mother's in law house is directly across the street from ours. Fortunately, we have a good relationship with her and we all enjoy spending time together. So, do we say we need to choose or change or correct the compound nouns of mothers in law? And if we were to correctly add or correctly correct the position of the possessive noun or the position of the joined, words, do we say mother-in-laws, the first option, mother-in-laws with this with double S, or do we say the third option, mother-in-law's sis? All right, and if we were to choose the correct one, we would choose option one, which is mother-in-laws with an apostrophe and an S at the end, the last part of that noun. All right. Ethel Rosenberg's and Julius Rosenberg's conspiracy trial in 1951 was highly publicized and widely debated. While some Americans felt the Rosenbergs were victims of anti communist hysteria, others believed the husband and wife had indeed shared secret information with the Russian government. All right, so we need to choose the correct text, right? By showing the correct joint positions, or we need to correct the errors if needed. So we said that Ethel Rosenberg and Julius Rosenberg, they have one trial, right? So since it is one trial that's implicating both of them, and then it means that only the second noun, the last noun, sorry, needs to then show the position. So which means that we will go with option one, which is Ethel Rosenberg and Julius Rosenberg's conspiracy trial, right? Because like I said, if it was a separate crime, a separate trial, or separate something, then we would have said Ethel Rosenberg's and Julius Rosenberg's because it is separate. Oh, the description is not the same as the answers, right? But if we were to choose the correct answers, it would be chief of staffs. Option one, right? The same year, the answers does not respond or relate to the text because here they're talking about Mountain Everest and the K2s. And I think like even yeah, if we were to use the correct one, remember we only add an apostrophe and an S, one S, not an apostrophe and S, or not an apostrophe and SES. So we'll go with option one, which is Mountain Everest and K2s. So Everest is on its own, K2s is on its own, which means that they are talking about two separate things. And the same with this one. Oh, even though Malia did not place first in her 5K meet, it says her runners up prize made all a months of training worthwhile. So we don't say her runners up, right? But we need to say her runner ups prize because it is joined, it is one word now. All right. So the option one is the incorrect. All right, so now let's go to the second one, which is to identify and correct errors and possessive nouns, right? So it says a plural noun, it names more than one person, it names more than one place, or more than one thing, right? So a possessive noun, it again shows who or what owns something, or it shows who has something. And we need to add an apostrophe as well as an S. So we need to add an apostrophe as well as an S to a singular noun to make sure that to make it a possessive noun. And when a plural noun ends in S, then we just add an apostrophe without an S to make it a possessive noun. And if we want to look at an example of how we add an apostrophe and an S to a singular noun to make it a possessive noun, let's say we make mention of Matt, right? Make mention of Jack, made mention of Nadine, right? And we want to say something that he or she owns, then we can say it is Matt's gloves and we put our apostrophe and our S. Shows whose gloves it is. The same with the bird, right? What about the bird, right? What belongs to the bird? And then we can say it is the bird's wings. So if we are referring to the wings of the bird, and then we can say it is the bird's wings. And then we said when a plural noun ends in S, we just add an apostrophe. That is not like at the end of the word, right? And that is to make it a possessive noun. And for example, if we are talking about the boys, right? The boys is more than one, right? And since the boys are going on a camp, we can then say the boys' camp. Because the girls are going on a camp. This is the girls' camp on the one side, and this is the boys' camp on the other side. So boys refers to more than one boy. You see, so now we just add the apostrophe at the end of that word. If we were even to make mention of the girls, which also refers to more than one, then we can say the girls' camp. And we put our apostrophe at the end because we are referring to more than one person already. All right. And then also, ne, when a plural noun does not end in an S. So yes, we do also have a plural. Sometimes plural nouns does not end with an S only. Because now it means that the word it changes, right? It becomes an irregular noun or an irregular verb, right? So when a plural noun does not end in an S, we add an apostrophe and an S to make it a possessive noun. For example, the children or the mice. You see, so we don't say the mouses, we say mice. We don't say the childs, we say children. And when we say children or we say mice, and then if we want to refer to, let's say we are doing something for the children, or we are giving something to the children, then we say we're referring to something about the children, and we say the children's toys. Because now it shows that it is their toys. And the mice, right, if we're referring to the tail of the mouse, then we can say the mice's tail. And we add an apostrophe and we add our S, as we did over here. So we don't say childs and we don't say mouses because we say mice. And yet it refers to more than one. It's a plural, right? So now we're going on to our test. And it says during the debate, the candidates argued about education, taxes, and America's international standings. Oopsie. And if we look at this word, yeah, right? It says during the debate, the candidates they argued about education, they argued about taxes and America's international standings. So if we are going to correct the error within that sentence, right? Remember we said that we only add an apostrophe at the end of the word without the s once it is a plural, right? So if it's a plural, and the plural ends with an s, right? Then only we add the apostrophe only without the s at the end of that word. But in this case, we are showing possession, right? So they are arguing about the America. They're arguing about America's international standing. Then we need to put the apostrophe. We need to say it is apostrophe and is, not just an apostrophe. So which means that option one is going to be correct because we say it's America's, right? So America and then apostrophe is. All right. So bird watchers can find the red-winged blackbird in marshes and fields throughout North America. The bird's distinctive oak-a-lee call makes it easy to identify. So we're not either going to have to find the plural or the possessive error. Remember, plural refers to more than one thing, right? Which means that we only add an s or we add an es to show the plural form of that word. And then we said when it comes to a possessive noun, right, then we add an apostrophe and s or just an apostrophe to show the possession because now we show either who owns something or who has something. So you see there's a difference between plural and possessive error. Plural shows that there's something more than and we only add an s or es, but the possessive noun it shows something, someone or something has something or owns something, all right? And we add an apostrophe to that, or we just add an apostrophe and an s. So since we are saying bird watches, right, then it means that it is just a plural noun, right? So we then say bird watches, where we just add an s without the apostrophe. Because it's people who watches birds. They are bird watchers. Once again, we need to either find the plural or the possessive error. It says Cornelius Vanderbilt was one of the richest Americans in history. The famous businessman's fortune was made in railroads and shipping. So Cornelius Vanderbilt was one of the richest Americans in history. The famous businessman's fortune was made in railroads and shipping. All right, so if we were to choose a correct one, we will say it is businessman's fortune because it's the famous businessman's. We are referring to the businessman. All right, so we can say several recent studies have linked standing desks to improve to several recent studies have linked standing desks to improvements in workers' health. Due to these findings, many companies are now offering their employees the option to use standing desks. Right? So now we need to see if there is a plural or a possessive error. And if we're referring to employees, right, they are offering employees the option of to use standing desks, right? Then it means that they are referring to more than one person working at the company, right? They're not referring to something who owns something. So we can say employees, which is going to be plural and not possession. All right, so this is the end of our lesson on apostrophes. And we said when it comes to apostrophes, right, then we have our positions or possessive nouns. And with possessive nouns, we either need to add an apostrophe and an S, or we add an apostrophe only to show either who owns or who has something, right? So possessive nouns, it shows us either who owns something or has something, right? All right, so this is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade 8, for joining the class. I really hope that you're going to have a good day further. Goodbye.